Hey, everybody. Today, the secret words are short film. And today we have guests from the One Screen Short Film Festival in New York, Reed Peraner and Brett McKenzie. Our guest, special filmmaker Todd Antony, with his film We Are Flying Stars, which was an extraordinary movie at the Short Film Festival. So I want to dig into this right away, and first we're going to talk about the Short Film Festival. And Reed, why don't you just tell us a little about the short film? You and Brett could tell us about the Short Film Festival.
Yeah, of course. So Brett and I work for the One Club for Creativity, and the One Club for Creativity puts on an annual short film festival called the One Screen Short Film Festival. And what's amazing about this film festival is it's the perfect fusion of the creative world of advertising and filmmaking because they just go hand in hand so much these days. And with One Screen, we're able to give that we're able to give that community, one home to be able to submit their work, to be able to celebrate their work, and the stuff that comes through, the combination of writing and just branded content really makes it a special thing. And you have work going up against each other that is inspiring, tear jerking, and then you have other work that is just feel good, making you laugh, and all the while it could be for a commercial for Chipotle, and you just don't even realize it until the Chipotle logo comes up. And it's like I said, it's a very unique space, especially here in New York and around the world too. We actually had our first winner this year for the best of show, who was from China, the production company Banana Balloon, and they were the first Chinese company to win One Screen this year, which is really exciting.
Well, just to back on what Reed was saying, it's such an incredible blend of advertising and filmmaking. Like if the One Club for Creativity works a lot with the ad world, and we know there's so many copywriters that have a screenplay in their desk drawer somewhere, or so many people that film 30-second commercials, but really what they want to do on the side is actually make their music videos, or to put forth a documentary, or a comedy short. And so this allows all of those hidden talents and not so hidden talents to come together on one screen. Every year the categories adjust and change to try and be more relevant with the emerging technologies and whatnot. This year, one of the things that we want to include is we really want to start to highlight drama and comedy, rather than just going for the emotions of the films, that have categories that target, that specifically aim that way, rather than just this is a piece of branded content, this is a music video. We want to jerk some tears or tickle some funny bones, and that's been officially put into the program.
Another award that we also included this year was just a part of the One Club for Creativity's umbrella. We include the Type Directors Club, TDC, and we involved them in the One Screen this year, and we had an award dedicated to type on posters, which was really exciting. We got a lot of great graphic design work, a lot of great lettering, so it was cool to now see the type community make their way into One Screen as well.
Yeah, I think that's important. I mean, the type. Talk about type. Judith and I talk about it all the time. We're designers. We're in the Rock Hall of Fame or work, and we have extraordinary background. But typography is a big thing. I know Carol Waller.
I was about to say, you must know Carol Waller.
Carol Waller is big time in our life for years, and she's wonderful. And I'm glad you all are a nucleus of this one club, which is phenomenal. It has so many different activities going on too.
There's never a dull moment with the One Club. There's always something happening, whether it's a program, a competition, philanthropy. We are 25/8.
So Judith and I we'll dive in here. Saw all this great film this year at the One Screen, and we just sitting in our chairs and waiting to start. And this film appears, the first one, called We Are Flying Stars, directed by Todd Antony, who is with us. Todd, tell us the basis, the motivation of doing this film.
Yeah, thanks very much, Spencer. So We Are Flying Stars is about a group of amputee footballers over in Sierra Leone. They all, during the Civil War there in the early 2000s, they all lost limbs either through landmines, bullets, and in some cases machete attacks by the rebels as well. And they've used football as a way for them to sort of all come together under as a group of like-minded people who've all experienced similar things and use sport as a positive way to mentally and physically, bring themselves out of the issues they've had from that period of time. For me, I'm a photographer by trade initially, and now moving more into film over the last 5 years or so. And so I undertake personal projects every sort of year or so, year and a half. And over the last 10 or so years, I guess, those have been all focused around little known groups or subcultures around the world, sort of essentially ordinary people that lead extraordinary lives in their own way. And so, a few years ago, I came across, my research came across the Flying Stars team over in Sierra Leone. Well, they're actually a series of teams across the country. And their story just grabbed me straight away, and my mind started ticking over from there. And the more I read about them and learned about them and got in contact with them and started to, go back and forth, talking with them, the more I knew I had to go out there and shoot their story, both photographs and for the film as well.
I saw your photography work on the internet. It's gorgeous, by the way.
Thank you.
There is also the tie-in, being a really good photographer and going into motion. Tell us about that, because you get really the visual idea on a high level. Yeah,
it's like I said, it's taken a while to sort of move into motion, but it's definitely something where you start with the visuals in your head. That's naturally what you do as a photographer, but then the great thing about film is you're able to then take a narrative and expand on it in such a much bigger way, and really delve into it, which is what I love. So I can still do the photography part of each project, which I love, but then the film side can take it to a whole other level and take it to a whole new audience as well. And in terms of the process as well, I just really, it's that much more collaborative working in film, between, from the pre-production, production, and through into post-production and editing and grading. And it's just it's a lot more collaborative than photography, which can be quite singular at times. So it's, I thoroughly enjoy it and really enjoy the way it's, you can tell a greater story. So it's something I'm moving into more and more and want to push ahead with.
I'm just curious about your budget for this film, because I think that's one of the most important things, really.
How to get a budget.
Creating that budget, and then how are you going to get that money?
What Reed touched on earlier was saying that the One Club's this great sort of fusion of, and the One Screen Film Festival is this sort of fusion of advertising work and film work. And the way I've always worked on my personal projects, starting out when they were all just photography based and not film and photography, is that the advertising work I do, that's my sort of my day-to-day is advertising work. So my personal projects and my advertising projects sort of have a symbiotic relationship, really. So make money from advertising, and then to cleanse my soul of sorts, I've then got to sort of go off and shoot these personal projects, which you got complete creative freedom on, but I use the advertising work to finance that. So
you're self-funding these?
I self-funded the entire thing. Yeah.
Oh my.
Wow.
So use the advertising work to fund it, and then hopefully someone in the advertising world sees a photograph or a film and thinks, hey, we want to shoot something along those lines. Let's get them to do that, and so you can it gets a cyclical thing going, hopefully, whereby you can fund the next project that way. So it means you do sort of fewer projects, but when you do them, you can do them all to your own liking, because you're self-funding. So.
And you're in control, total control.
Yeah.
Do you do the copywriting for it as well?
But for instance, for We Are Flying Stars, it's obviously their story, but I'm working with them as we I spend a few months in pre-production with them, going back and forth, and then it's a case of spending time on the ground for this sort of project, which is a documentary, obviously. So you've got to spend time with them and get to know them and learn them. So learn their stories, and so you're sort of. You're not writing as such, because you're editing in your head as you go, basically thinking, okay, I've just learned something new about Umar Sandy today, and so how can I portray that in the film? So therefore you've got to start sort of thinking of framework around that, and things you might need to shoot to add to that to make that scene have the right context. So you're not so much writing as sort of editing in your head, as it were. And what I like to do as well is before I go to a place like Sierra Leone in this instance is to do some sort of pre-interview, with people, so you can ask them some questions and you can start working out who the best people are going to be as part of the story. So I've worked with Umar Sandy on this, he's the sort of the main protagonist in the film that guides us through, and you hear his voice throughout the whole film. So I spent a lot of time with him and his family and his village in Sierra Leone.
Let's go over the basis of the film. There's a civil war in Sierra Leone, 1991 to 2002, killing 50,000 people. Oh my God! But thousands of the civilians had amputee arms or legs, and by the rebels, and just a group of these civilians got together and formed a football team, right? Tell us a story about that.
Yeah, so as you said there, so through the war there was a large number of amputations. A lot of times rebels would go into a village and they would basically round up the young boys, and they would cut off a leg or an arm, and that means that they wouldn't then be able to fight. Basically, horrific. And then a lot of times, a lot of the players as well caught in the crossfire between all landmines as well, because they were obviously pretty indiscriminate things. And so after the war, a group of them started the Flying Stars football team. Initially, it was started by someone who wasn't an amputee, and eventually the players started to find that they were not being used, isn't the right word, but they were being sort of almost used in a circus-like way for a little bit, they said to me. And then eventually they took that power back into their own hands and made the football teams themselves, basically. And so now there's 5 teams across the country, and they've just had their first Premier League, basically. So their first inter club competition. They've come together and had a competition over a number of weeks. There's a NGO called FANT who do fantastic work out of Denmark, and they also help assist with that sort of thing as well. So yeah, now they use, like I said, they use football as their sort of way of mentally and physically, getting over the wounds that they've suffered all those years ago now.
One of the strong points of the film is the editing. Tell us about the editing. There's a big thing of the editing of the film really makes the intensity just prevail.
Yeah, I work with some great editors, Ben and Jack at Trim Editing. They've been fantastic, because this has been, it's a passion project for them as well. It's not, they not funded on their part. So it's and Trim, glad hopefully gives their time to me. So that was done over quite a long time, but they've been fantastic in terms of how they've managed to, piece together the footage, because I can go in with an idea of the framework that I want within a film, and then they'll be like, well, why don't we try this? And they'll sort of go off down a lane, and you're like, oh wow, that's showing me something from a whole different point of view. So they've been fantastic in that regard. As editing is a dark art, which is if you can't see it, it's probably doing well, if you know what I mean. If it's not noticeable. Lighting. Exactly. Yeah. Good lighting is something you're not conscious of the whole time. So same with editing. And this film especially needed the pacing to be correct, because obviously the roots of the subject matter are quite dark, quite heavy. So you can't shy away from that. But equally, it's also a really positive story as well. What they've done, through football to lift themselves up. So we had to sort of find the pace and the rhythm of not shying away from the tragedy, but also then showing the positivity as well. And it's not just a case of here's the positive end and everything's great and happy for them, because things are still very difficult for them. But it's just trying to find that right sort of crescendo. And Ben and Jack did a fantastic job finding that balance for us, especially with the opening as well. They sort of was trying to find a way to interweave sort of the history of the war without the Civil War, without having to explain everything, because it's a complex subject that's hard to just summarize in a short film. So it's finding a way of informing the viewer enough for them to be able to know what's happened without having to spell it out exactly, because that would be a feature film at that point.
Like you said, the beginning of the film, you're filled with so much emotion. You're filled with with all the storytelling that you're doing, but then by the end of it, your mood really does like do a 180 almost. And the fact that you do that all in a short film, you go from such like a serious subject matter to just kind of like firing people up by the end of it, motivating them, inspiring them. Like to do that in a short film in such like a small period of time, like feature films can't pull off like that change of emotion. And the way that you do it here with We Are Flying Stars is just, it's exceptional work, really.
You beat me to it, Reed. It's a very good point about short film and how the challenges about that. Let's get into that. It really is a different format than a feature film. And you're right. It takes a short amount of time to get your message across. And the message, has got to be very intense. And that's why the best of these films were chosen, because of their message. Reed or Brett, why don't you tell us about that?
I mean, you can't really have, that long cold open. You can't have, the Stanley Kubrick black screen with like 10 minutes of opening credits. It's like you're on a mission. Like you got to hit the ground running. I mean, if people don't know the story you're trying to tell in the first, 30 seconds to a minute, I think you've lost them completely. They're gonna shut it off. So especially with just, people do have short attention spans nowadays, especially with just things like TikTok and social media that give you all of this stuff in like, 10-second format. So, you really have to hit the mark when it comes to your pacing and when it comes to your storytelling in short films, because you only have this precious amount of time, this precious amount of attention that someone's going to give you.
This film, it tugs at your heart, which is, Brett, you were saying how you wanted one of the visions for the One Club was, to find films that do that relay emotions onto the viewer. And, this film certainly, hits every, checks off all those boxes.
Yeah, I'd say one of the unique features about the one screen is that it does come from the ad world, and therefore you're dealing with people that, forget $60 million budget. Like they were deliberately constrained to 30 seconds, 60 seconds, telling us a story in a very specific amount of time. So I feel that the short film, the world of short film works very well with the audience that we have. Yes, everybody does like to go to the movies to see a big epic, but if you're, creativity, I've always said that creativity thrives in constraints, and the short film gives a lot of constraints for people to push back and see which is what they can do with that time or with that budget. And quite often magic happens, as you saw with the Flying Tigers and a lot of the other winners this year.
We talk about short films and how, with such a short period of time, like you need to be able to hit it, hit the mark. And I think a lot of that, factors into the acting, with more fictional work. You really need a good actor to sell the script that you're, bringing to life. But with We Are Flying Stars, it's not actors. There's no actors. It's real people who are telling these, conveying stories. And I think that's also just something that really makes it truly special. You can't hinder on, a huge bombastic performance from a committed actor, but you have these real down to earth people who are telling you, their life, and they're putting it on camera, for history almost. And I think there's something really special to be said about that.
Yeah, and that's part of that's trying to find your protagonists, as it were. And like I said beforehand, I got my local fixer to go out and speak to a few of the different players and try and find the one where they'd be comfortable on camera, but also have a good story to tell. And Umar was great in that regard. And then it was just spending time with them, just trying to, because they're not going to get into the sort of the minutiae or the darker parts of things, with a stranger. So you need to sort of spend time with them to really let that out. And there was a few moments when I was holding back tears with a few of the players. Some of the stories they would I'd be sitting down saying let's just have a chat before we take some photographs, and we'd just be sitting on the beach in Freetown. And one of the players was talking about, I think he was about 5 or 6, and he the rebels came into the village, and he was on his mother's back, and a bullet basically caught his leg, which is how he ended up getting his amputation. But the rest of his relatives were rounded up into a house, and the doors were locked, and the house was burnt down.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And we were just talking on the beach. He was saying it very matter of factly because obviously he was 5 or 6 at the time. So for him, there's sort of a strange separation. It's quite strange. And then as I walked up the beach to sort of start setting up the camera gear with my assistant, I was just recording what had just been said into my phone, just voice dictating it back, and
unbelievable.
You can't fathom it from our point of view.
How long did you work on the film, Todd?
So I went up there for the first time for 2 weeks, and that was shooting stills and motion, and then we came back over, and then we started, going through the edit and just sort of starting to build the framework of it, and then I went back again for another 2 weeks. Once we sort of figured out, okay, I think we need, a few more bits of sinew to join all the bits together. So I went back for another 2 weeks. So it was a month's worth of filming in total, and then obviously the edit took quite a while as well.
Going back to short film, Reed or Brad, how entering the film festival? Why don't you talk about entering the film festival?
Yeah, One Screen 2024. We start accepting submissions in the summertime. It's usually when we get everything up and running, start building up the hype. We start showcasing, highlighting past winners to help promote entries for the following season. So, be on the lookout on all of the One Club sources, our websites, our e-blasts. They will be the first place that you will see any announcements about One Screen or any events that we have throughout the year to help promote One Screen. We'd like to have, guest spots every once in a while, just between articles or, screenings in our gallery of past work as well with Q&As afterwards. So as long as you follow the One Club, you'll be following One Screen.
It's always evolving. Like what's the One Screen from 10 years ago is different from what it is now. There's always new challenges. We had the COVID and the pandemic. Last year, we had the writers' strikes and the actors' strikes that really changed things. Of how are things done? Or so every year there's a new thing. People are questioning how AI factors into this world. Now that's the ability to, like recently you saw a video that's couldn't have been done a year ago is now able to be done. How does that factor into the world that we go in? So I really feel that this becomes it's quite a playground for what's new and what's coming and what's changed and what's affecting our world and our industry. And like each year is a little different. Each year there's new challenges, new ways to celebrate it, and we look forward to that each year. What's going to be the thing what's the direction that the world is going to take this in?
What can we expect from you going forward?
I've got it's a sort of semi-new project. I've been going back and revisiting some old projects that were just photography based, and I've been looking for a new project because I'm sort of at that point now where it's my yearly arc that I reach where I suddenly start getting itchy and I've got to go out again. I did a stills project a few years ago in Bolivia on 2 groups of indigenous Amara women called curators. You may have seen the pictures of them with the bowler hats and the really bright full dresses.
Yes. I love that.
So I did two photo series. One was with a group of climbers and then the other was with a group of wrestlers who, if you can imagine sort of your WWE wrestling, but in the full, they're young, small women who come up to about my shoulder, dressed in these amazing dresses and everything else, and they wrestle basically, and they're incredible. I saw one of them pick up a guy twice their size over his shoulder and slam him into the deck. So I did a stills project with them a few years back now, and I've literally just started putting feelers out to see if they'll be willing to have me back for a little bit to shoot a film on them, because again their story is another amazing story, and that the Amara indigenous people have gone from being highly marginalized, racially segregated, in some instances, and they've basically fought their way back to recognition, basically. And so there's sort of their fight in the ring mirrors their sort of fight in life. So it's got a nice dual track to it there. So hopefully that'll be the next project.
So you're going from football to wrestling.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never tried to make it a sports thing, but yeah, it's just,
you're using sports as like a gateway, as a vessel to like telling these compelling stories about real people. Really,
it's weird that I've never really thought about that, because my sort of first major project was with a group of cheerleaders in Sun City, Arizona, called the Sun City Poms, and they are all age 55 to 80. And they've got their own they've got their own cheerleading group. They can do the splits. They do all sorts of incredible things. And so I did a film on them a couple of years ago, again revisiting sort of 4 or 5 years after I'd shot the stills. But I'd never really considered that everything suddenly seems to be sport, because it's not actually a conscious decision. But I guess sport gives you that sort of.
It's such a universal thing. It's a universal.
It's a vehicle to provide a story. So it's
Did you play any sports in your childhood, Todd?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, so maybe there's something sitting back there, which is.
In addition to being the director, are you also the cinematographer?
In this instance, yeah. So that was basically just the only crew down there was me, my assistant, who was my photography assistant, but also did a bit of sort of extra footage and sort of worked as an AC, and then my fixer and our driver, and that was it. That was all of us. So I did the sound. I learned how to do sound, and So sort of went from there, but it's sort of it's a good learning curve anyway, because it's nice. It's kind of like photography as well. It's I want to know how to retouch everything so I can speak to my retoucher in the right way. Much like doing the sound, you can learn about sound so that you know how to speak to a sound technician in the same way. It's you can absorb all these little bits. I mean, I'd like to sort of partition off the cinematography part potentially to a DOP on certain projects, because it's quite hard to keep it all in your head at once. There's sort of shots that were, didn't make the cut, where I was like, oh, I should have moved around there and done this slightly differently with that shot, because your head's over there trying to think about the directing part of it. So it's when it's a documentary like that, which is so free flowing, if scripted stuff's a lot easier because you're, everything's quite pre-planned and on rails, as it were. Whereas documentary, you're reacting to things a lot more constantly, whether it be light or a situation that's happening in front of you, or so it's it's the head gets a bit full sometimes.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, Judith and I judged last year the film festival. We thoroughly enjoyed that. We've judged major film festivals, and in the short film category, that's our favorite. I mean, Judith, our heart is in your film festival. and the other reason why is the quality of films that come into you, Brett and Reed. The quality of films are high quality. Now, this, we've judged other film festivals, it's back and forth, but your film festival seems to get a very high quality entry thing, right?
Yeah, you got to thank the judges for that too. I mean, you've judged it before, Spencer. So I mean, you guys are definitely seeing like the best of the best work, and then Brett and I got to go deep in the trenches when we're processing everything, and we got to we have our own standards. Like this is good. This is a little lacking. Like this could just like you were saying, like we really try to push the highest quality content out there. We try to push the highest quality in storytelling and filmmaking and advertising, all of it. And I feel like this year you were even luckier, Spence and Judith, because unfortunately you can't judge 2 years in a row, but because of that, you just got to come and see the winners this year. So you really saw the best of the best. You didn't
right.
You didn't make it to the end,
It's a thrilling experience, and I want to wish you the best. And that's why Judith and I and Patrick want to interview you every year, because of the quality level. I mean, and that's an important thing, I think, for people to know about. And I want to give a shout out to Patrick Bamburak above me, who is our producer and puts the quality together on the editing and the visuality of the show. And I want to tell you the reason why he's so good. We got 3 of our show interviews in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame archival collection. So that's a big honor. And Patrick's the main cause of that wonderful experience. How many categories? People should know that. So when they enter, there's a lot of openness to this thing. There's a lot of categories, right?
Yeah, top of my head, I don't know the exact number because we keep adding every single year, but I think we're close to 50 different categories now.
Wow.
We break it up into two sections, genre and craft. And yeah, I think just over the last few years, I think we're getting pretty close to 50.
We also celebrate different regions, just to make it more global. Sometimes you do some of these festivals or award shows, and then it all gets concentrated in American or Western European stuff. But we really made a point to try and get more work from Latin America, from across Asia and Africa. And then, like as Reed mentioned at the beginning, this is our first year where our best of discipline was from China. So I think that's really one of the, it is something that is highlighted in the show in the categories, just the different regions of the world. And I think that really makes a difference as well.
I'm curious, is there how do you define short film? Is there a limit as to how long a film can be, or?
For One Screen specifically, we try to tell entrants to keep it under 20 minutes. Yeah, we try to tell them 20 minutes or less, essentially, just to be for both the sake of judges, for the sake of time, and also for the run of show as well. So we don't have a show with the winner's work that goes over like 4 hours long.
Well, that would not be short.
No, it would not. So, but then we've had a few exceptions. If somebody has a piece of work and it's like 22 minutes long, but it's something really high caliber, it's something that we think is special, that we think people should see, like there's no way it doesn't go through.
Got it.
Well, it's lights, cameras, and that's the show. So thank you everyone for being on.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you, Judith, my wonderful co-host,
you.
with the eye of the tiger. And Brett, McKenzie, and Reed, you're doing a spectacular job. Looking forward to next year's interview. And Todd, wonderful work and the greatest success to you.
Thank you.